Welcome back to the Guitar Reliquary. Today we're talking tools. So I was doing some adjustments on my Paul Reed Smith here next to me, and I thought that I would talk just briefly about the kind of tools that I think every guitarist should have. So I start off with an Ernie Ball Musician's Toolkit as a base. You can already hear things rattling around in there. That's because I've added substantially to it. There are other brands that make these types of toolkits. For example, there's the Fender Custom Shop one, which is Cruise Tools. It's a great one, but I really only use one tool out of that. There's a D'Addario one. There is a Music Nomad one, but of the ones that I've looked at and the quality of the products inside, I've gone with the Ernie Ball. So what I wanted to do is just open this up, show you what I've got in here, talk about what I've added, and how I would use some of these things. So opening it up, you will see that my toolkit is very different than standard. I have a lot of different stuff in here. So I'd like to start by running through what comes with it and then what I've added to it, or what I've replaced in it. So first off, it comes with a large screwdriver. This screwdriver has 2 bits and is reversible. On one end, the bit is a Phillips 2¼ inch flathead bit, and then on the other end is a Phillips 1¾ inch flathead bit. And so those can go in either way. I use this for adjustment of larger screws on a guitar. So for example, if I were adjusting the switch here, if I were removing Strat buttons or replacing Strat buttons, if I had to take the neck off of a guitar for some reason, I use them for back plates. I don't use them for any of the fine adjustment work. For fine adjustment work, I have another screwdriver that I've added to this that I will come back to in a second. So another thing included in the Ernie Ball toolkit is a set of wire cutters. I really like the Ernie Ball quality of the wire cutters here, and I also like the size. So the longer that the handle is, the less force that you have to apply to do your clipping, and that's useful for me because I have the tenosynovitis in my hand. So you always got to have those for string changes and whatnot. It comes with an engineering rule, and I've actually had several engineering rules for measuring action and whatnot. Several engineering rules over the years. This is the one that I have held on to. There are variations between engineering rules depending on the manufacturing tolerances, and this one measures action the way that I like it. They are not metric, they are imperial. So on one side you have 64ths of an inch, on the other side 30 seconds. And actually I just showed you that backwards. The 30 seconds are up here, the 64ths are down here. But engineering rule. It also comes with a set of Allen wrenches that go all the way from, and I can't actually find the size of this one, but starting at 1.5 millimeters, which is the second to smallest one in this kit, all the way up to 5 millimeters. And those Allen wrenches, it includes both metric and imperial for the common adjustments that you need for guitars. And that's sort of everything that I've kept that was standard in the kit. Something else that the kit comes with is a string winder. And I actually don't use the string winder that came with it for 2 reasons. One, this one is red and the one that came with it is black, and I guess I'm biased. But number 2 is that I've had this one since 1996. This was a gift from my dad when I was 11 years old, and so I've held on to it. It still works. I much prefer the manual ones to an electric one, but I do know that electric ones are popular out there. The other thing that the kit comes with is 1 string cleaner wipe, 1 polish, and 1 fretboard conditioner wipe. The only ones I replenish are the string cleaner wipes, and I know many people just wipe their strings down after they're done, but the string cleaner wipes will pick up more grime than just a dry rag will. So I use these after playing maybe 2 or 3 times in a week. I'll use these to extend my string life, and I like what they do for the strings. They may not be for everybody. They work for me. Okay, so that's everything that comes with the kit. So let's talk about what I've added to it. So first off, I added a fine screwdriver. This is an electronic screwdriver, and it has several bits as well. The smallest one is a 1/16 inch flathead and a 000 Phillips head. The one that I currently have installed and that I keep installed most of the time is a 1/8 inch flathead and a and a Phillips head number 1. And then there's also a third one here, which is a Phillips head aught and a 3/32 of an inch. Boy, that's worn pretty good, but it looks like a 3/32 of an inch flathead. So I use this for adjustment of the pickup pole pieces, for intonation adjustments, for any of the fine screws on here. I'm very happy to use something like this for intonation adjustment because it has a lower profile and less likelihood of me actually hitting the top of the guitar. And as I get older, I tend to shake more, and so perhaps that's why I'm not a surgeon, but I like to have something that reduces the chance of me making a ghastly error. Oh, let's see. Another thing that I keep in here is an Ibanez multi-tool. And the reason that I keep the Ibanez multi-tool in here is that it has a metric engineering rule on it. So if I ever need to measure anything metric, I've got that right here. So that's all in millimeters. And it also has a hex wrench, and this is a metric hex wrench. So this is useful for adjusting the truss rod on import Paul Reed Smith guitars and on my Sugi guitar and any other guitars that would have this type of adjustment. So those are the two things I use on this multi-tool, and I just got this, came with a guitar that I bought like 10 years ago or something, and I just kept this. I don't have the guitar, but I kept the multi-tool. Some things are forever. Next, I think that everybody should have a capo in their toolkit. And the reason I say this is because a very quick way to assess whether your neck needs more relief is to just capo the first fret, put your finger on the last fret, and then do a tap test. So I don't have a lot of clearance there. So I would probably relax the truss rod on this guitar a little bit so that I get a little bit more relief in the neck. I tend to run my necks fairly straight, so somewhere around, I don't know, 0.005 inches is my ideal neck relief. And if I have to get up to 0.01, that's too much relief for me. So I like a fairly straight neck. Obviously, many people think that 0.01 is the standard. That's often the factory recommendation for, say, Gibson and Fender and other manufacturers, but 0.005 is what works for me. Speaking of hex wrenches, I also have a Gibson USA hex wrench that came with a Gibson guitar, again, probably 20 years ago, that I've just held on to. So this will adjust Gibson USA truss rods, and it will also adjust PRS truss rods, USA PRS truss rods. Coupled with the capo, I keep a feeler gauge. This is not an engineering thing. This is a feeler gauge. This feeler gauge is a 0.01 feeler gauge, and I don't use it to set this to 0.01, but I use it to see if I've overdone it with my relief. So if this slides under the strings handily, I have too much relief in my neck for me. Now, the one thing that I have in this Fender kit that I use actually is a feeler gauge set. So in here is a feeler gauge set. You don't have to have a fancy Fender one. This came with a guitar that, again, the guitar is gone, but at least the toolkit remains. This feeler gauge has all the way from, let's see, 0.002 inches up to 0.025 inches, yes. So 0.05 millimeters all the way to 0.63 millimeters. So what I'll use these for is not to set the exact relief in the neck, but rather to assess the nut height. So I'll use these to figure out how much clearance I have over my first fret. Many people don't use a feeler gauge for that. Instead, they say, You want it as low as possible so that when you do the 3rd fret test, you have just a sliver of light coming through. But for me, that's way too low. I have a heavy picking hand, if you haven't noticed already on the channel, and therefore I need more clearance at the nut so my guitar plays cleanly. Okay, speaking of different things to measure or assess, I also think everybody needs a fret rocker. So this is a StewMac fret rocker. I got this as a gift from my dad. Thank you again, Dad, for this and this. And actually, you probably bought the toolkit too. But regarding the fret rocker, this is a quick way when I get a guitar, if I lower the action to where I want it based on that measurement, if I lower this to, 3.5 64ths of an inch on my high E and like 4.5 64ths on my low E, and I do a bend and it frets out, then that's generally, to me, as long as the radius is like 9.5 or flatter, that tells me that I've got a high fret somewhere. And so I'll pull this out, and what I can do is I can actually just check how level the frets are in relation to each other. And I don't even know why I'm doing this with this guitar. I obviously don't have any high frets on a Paul Reed Smith made in America. They are probably one of the most reliable in terms of their fretwork, along with Mayona's, who uses Plek machine, and Gibson Custom Shop is also very reliable, and the Cower. So Cower guitars are Pleked as well. So those are probably the ones with the best fretwork that I've played. We're getting down here towards the end. I have a couple of more odds and ends in here. I do keep some wrenches in here for a ratchet. And so what I'll use these for is tightening down tuner grommets, tuner, why can't I think of the word here? Tightening down tuner nuts, and also to attach strap buttons to straps. So oftentimes you'll have some sort of nut that you can attach that way, especially with something like the Ernie Ball strap lock type. And then I have a larger one because sometimes I find that for the output jacks, sometimes they have a larger footprint depending on the type of jack. So the last few things in here are truss rod adjustment tools. I have 2 of those. So one is something that my dad made. I guess I have 3 things from him in here, which is basically a modification of the Ernie Ball adjustment tool that he actually made himself. He ground it down, but this is useful for anything that has an adjustment wheel, a spoke wheel for the truss rod. So I keep one of those in there. You could use the screwdriver, but I like having one dedicated to that. And then I also have this handy little thing from StewMac, which is used to butt adjust Telly and Strat truss rods. So if they have a traditional truss rod, butt adjust, you have to take the neck off. Sometimes you can just take the pick guard off and put this in there and get it to turn. And that will be really save you a lot of time if you can do that. So I have one of those too. I also have this tool right here, which is used to adjust a Faber locking bridge. I have this because some of the Les Pauls that I've owned in the past have had the Faber locking system. It's also just a useful tool for me to adjust, say, the stop tail piece on a guitar. I can use this as perfect thickness. I can use it to actually slide right in there and it's perfect. And then I can twist it with the whole length of it. So what I avoid doing is putting marks in the heads of the bridge mounting posts here, because I hate when you use the wrong thing, and that gives it sort of that tweaked look. So I try to use this to keep it clean looking. And then the final tool in here is dedicated to 2 guitars. One is the George Lynch that I have here. The other is the Warren DeMartini, and that is the Floyd Rose adjustment tool called the Key. So the Key is a super useful tool that allows you to adjust intonation on a Floyd Rose style guitar. These screws right here, so you can actually shimmy this right in, and it has a ability to sit on the lip and then adjust outward to hold that saddle lock screw in place, which is also, you know, how you would set the adjustment by moving the saddle backwards and forward. So having this tool makes Floyd Rose intonation adjustments way faster. You don't have to do that thing where you try to physically move it back and forth. You can use the key for that. So I highly recommend a key if you have a Floyd Rose guitar. All right, folks, well, I think that takes me to the end of the common tools that I use to keep all my guitars in playing shape. Obviously, you wouldn't need some of these tools depending on the types of guitars you have, the number of guitars you have, the number of frequency of adjustments that you make, but I have enough that I need all of these tools and regularly use almost all of them to maintain my guitars in the playing shape that I want them to be in. If you haven't done so already, check out some of the other content on the channel. Like, subscribe, hit the notifications button. And if you're interested in some of the tracks that have been on the channel, you can find me on Bandcamp as the Guitar Reliquary. All right, have a nice day.